Welcome to the Love Siren Podcast, your weekly dose of enchantment for the modern romantic. I'm Dahlia, your queer, poly, feminist witch, guiding you into your most magnetic, irresistible siren self. If you're craving ocean-deep love, delicious confidence, and results that last, you've just unlocked the right portal. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get into it.
Straight to the intro. Dahlia, are you okay? Yeah, I just didn't have a prologue for you for this week. This one's going to be a little bit of an interesting podcast for us. It's actually going to be based off of a newsletter that I wrote in 2023, but my comedy mentor keeps referencing it even after all these years. And so I thought that it was worthwhile to turn it into a podcast. The world is hard. And it's not like something in particular happened today that makes me say that. I think that any day of the week, there's something new that is coming out that we're just like, what the F, you know? When I was doing stand-up comedy, I remember when Donald Trump got elected and people were like, oh, aren't you so excited? You have so much material. And I was just like, no, I'm not excited. But the truth is like, I think that the world has always sucked. And I think that that can be really hard, especially for white people to remember. And I think it can be especially hard when you are a kind and empathetic person, because you just feel the weight of the world just a little bit more than somebody who is more selfish. It's a really hard time to be trans right now. And also at the same time, there has never been a better time to be trans. It could be better. Not denying that. But I think it is important to at least say that if you are queer in the year 2026, like, it's hard, but how incredible to see yourself represented not just in the media, but also in the law. This is something that I think is a bit of a disadvantage for me being such a grounded witch, in the sense that I absolutely think that racism, misogyny, transphobia, queerphobia, all of these things exist. I think that the government has a responsibility to take care of its citizens. I think that there is only so much stoicism that a person can do before recognizing that there is systematic injustices. I lost my breath on that rant. There's only so much stoicism that a person can do before they reach a point of systematic injustices that they can't just think themselves out of. All of these are real. All of these are important to take into consideration. And also, you are so much more in control than you think you are. And your mindset is your greatest gift on this planet, especially to fight against these injustices. I get incredibly frustrated with my fellow liberal friends from their apathy and how they think that protesting and voting doesn't do anything. And in my mind, if it didn't do anything, then the right wouldn't be doing as much as they possibly could to take those rights away from us. I don't think it ends with just voting and protesting. I think that there is more action that needs to be taken. Over the pandemic, I decided to start to talk to QAnon men to try to de-brainwash them. And it was as awful as you would expect. It was an incredibly frustrating process, but one person is no longer a registered Republican, so we are taking the wins where we can find them. I believe being liberal is objectively correct. Not only is it the kind thing to do for its citizens, but economically, it also just makes the most amount of sense. And I feel very grounded in that. And so it means that I can have a conversation with pretty much anybody to try to get them to see my perspective. I might do a different podcast where I talk about my experience talking to QAnon men, but that's not going to be this podcast. For the most part, I actually don't even really like talking about politics, but I also know that it is so important, and it's so important to be involved, especially when you are a person like me who is constantly complaining about the state of the world. But I think that it is because I have such a strong gratitude mindset that I can take that injustice button that is constantly being pushed and want to experience a better world instead of falling into the trap of apathy. Because honestly, I feel like so many of my friends feel like the meteor has already hit the world and we are just the dinosaurs who are going extinct. Instead of being like, holy crap, we are in the most advanced society that we have ever experienced on this planet. It is a miracle that we are here. Let's fight for it with every tooth and nail that we possibly can. Anyway, it's already been twice now that I have done the titular mirror complaint, where basically the concept behind this is that anything that you are complaining about, you can see the mirror image to try to find the gratitude. This is a very classic therapy technique of reframing. I coined the term mirror complaint because I genuinely believe that every complaint has a reflection. And our brains are wired towards negativity. Our brains want to keep us safe. And so if we think negatively, then that will help keep us safe, which is a good thing, but only in certain doses. Do you like screaming on roller coasters or the tingly feeling that you get in horror movies? You have anxiety to thank for that. And thinking of the worst case scenario is helpful for our evolution. It's helpful for the human race. It's helpful for you. But the problem is that if you're not thinking about the best case scenario on top of all of the various worst case scenarios, that when the best case scenario enters into your life, you're going to be unprepared. You're going to see that positive thing and think, oh no, I'm not prepared for this. I don't know what this is. And so it's just as important to prepare for the best case scenario as it is for the worst case scenario. And so we need every little bit of help that we can get to help rewire that negativity into positivity. For example, I suffer pretty intensely from anxiety. I remember when I was moving from Boston to Los Angeles, and I had a diary entry that was just like literally every single thing that could go wrong with all of it. Everything from the actual like logistics of moving to everything that was wrong with LA, everything that would be really challenging for me, like all of these things. And not once did I have a list of all of the things that could go right. I don't think that there is any universe that I would have started this business if I didn't completely reframe the way that I think. Now, every time when I say the phrase I hate, or I can feel a complaint coming on, that is a signal to me that I need to then dip into my gratitude. And it works because we're interrupting that negative thought loop that can get very addicting and very easy to spiral. And you'll find that the more you do this practice, the more you'll experience emotional resilience. So right now in my life, I hate my HOA. They are always in my business. I think that they're lazy. I hate them. Also, if they magically find this podcast, I love you. Please don't kick me out. But I can reframe that as, oh my gosh, how incredible to have an HOA who just takes care of all of the landscaping. Like, I love my apartment complex. I find that the landscaping is really gorgeous, where they have strategically placed the plants where it doesn't matter what time of year it is, there's always something that is blooming, which is like, stunning, stunning. I also have a pool, which I'm a mermaid. And so I love that. I feel like even when I lived in coastal cities like Boston and Los Angeles, I really only got to go to the beach maybe a couple times a year. And I feel like I live at the pool during the summer in Vegas. But you can see how it would be so easy for me to get into this spiral of negativity around my HOA and just kind of be like, I'm just going to move, whatever. When there's a lot of positives about having this HOA, even though again, I cannot stress enough, they suck. They have a 2-star rating on Google. Another one that I have is I absolutely hate my student loan payment. I feel like I got scammed, but also at the same time, how incredible is it that I have a master's degree? How incredible is it that a bank trusted me with $50,000? And, now I'm able to kind of pull out my master's degree kind of whenever, it does elevate me into a different category that means that my job prospects are just a little bit better. I mourn Louis C.K. I know he's not dead, but I'm just so disappointed that I can't listen to him anymore. Anyway, he used to have this joke about how we would complain about slow internet and he would just be like, are you kidding? Like, you spoiled brats. Like, this is the most incredible thing. And I feel like that is yet another example of a mirror complaint. One of the other ones that I experience with my friends, especially as I'm getting older, is I hate my wrinkles, which is so heartbreaking to me. I really like my wrinkles now. I feel really excited about them. Also, this is a little ridiculous, but also a really good example of the anxiety that I experience. I love that my chances of getting kidnapped are plummeting with every passing day. Human trafficking, that's for the youngins, not for me. Is this going to be my most controversial podcast episode yet? Maybe. Is this finally the one that gets me canceled? We'll find out. But anyway, if you are somebody who doesn't like your wrinkles, I would love to offer the reframe of, I am so grateful that I have lived life long enough to get wrinkles on my face. Especially when we live in a society that values pedophilic beauty standards, it's such an act of rebellion to love your full hips and your full stomach and your bush and your wrinkles, anything that makes you an actual adult person. And again, I want to acknowledge that some things genuinely suck. I have friends who have lost parents that they love so dearly, and there is not really any mirror complaint that can make that feel better. There are systematic injustices that we have to live with that just suck. But gratitude helps keep you going. It's not ignoring what is wrong. I think that is when you can get into that toxic positivity mindset, where you refuse to process your negative feelings. And I'm trying to offer, if you are somebody who leans more negative naturally, a balm for that, a small remedy to help make that feel a little easier to get you through your days. I often say that gratitude is like ibuprofen. It might not solve everything, but it might make things feel just a little bit easier to help you keep going. This was a really short podcast episode full of very controversial opinions. I really hope you loved it. I wanted to end on this note that I left in this newsletter. It was during January. So I wrote, "My wish for you. May this next year bring you so much abundance. May you fall deeper in love with yourself. May your gratitude overflow into the cups of people who desperately need it. May your wishes be granted. May your farts be silent in public and hilarious at home. May your food be exactly the right temperature always." And it's really fun to read something from 3 years ago and know that that is the exact same blessing that I would give today. Thank you as always for being here. I'm so grateful to have you, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode.